Welcome to ancient Rome as it was in 4th century CE. Today we will speak about one of the most famous buildings of the Eternal City. Temple of Venus and Roma was probably the largest and most splendid temple of Rome. It was a double temple on the slope of the Velia hill. The temple was built by Hadrian beginning in 121 CE to Venus Felix and Roma Aeterna. The temple was probably dedicated in 135 CE. In 307 CE, the temple burned, and Maxentius then restored it. The temple roof tiles were gilded bronze. The temple and flanking colonnades stand on a vast platform of concrete 145 meters long and 100 meters wide, faced with blocks of peperino between travertine footings for the columns. Now we will explore this complex in more detail. This is history in 3D, and we're creating the most detailed, accurate, and complete 3D reconstruction of ancient Rome. The eastern facade of the temple faced the Colosseum. Owing to the slope of the terrain, it stands at about 9 meters high and consists of parallel vaulted chambers. On the south side of the temple complex, there was a street that is identified as part of the Via Sacra, or Vicus Curiarum. On the lower side, it faced the Meta-Sudan's fountain, and on the upper side, there is the Arch of Titus. On the northern side, there were the buildings of Velia Hill, including the Tellus temple. The camera moves from the Basilica of Maxentius to the Colosseum. The dimensions of the temple were enormous. Its columns, made of blocks of white marble, reached 18 meters in height. Pay attention to the size of people's figures. The side porticoes were decorated with columns of gray granite and Carystian marble. Some of them have now been put back to their place. The design of the temple was Emperor Hadrian's own. To obtain space for the temple, Hadrian had to destroy the ceremonial entrance court of the Domus Aurea and move the Colossus Neronis, then Solis, to a place near the Colosseum. The western facade faced Via Sacra. We are approaching from the Forum Romanum side. To our left is the Basilica of Maxentius. In front of the temple, there was a stair of 11 steps across almost the whole front. We see the temple of Venus and Roma in the rays of the setting sun. The temple had much in common with the imperial forums, and in many ways continued the tradition of these. The western Cella of Roma was clearly meant to dominate over the surrounding area. Emperor Hadrian was a convinced Hellenophile. This is reflected in the architecture of the building. It resembles a classical Greek temple, without a high podium and with entablatures in the Hellenistic style. However, it is obvious that the exterior was richly decorated and colorful. We've already reconstructed the western Cella with Roma statue. Let's go inside. The two cellae stood back to back, that of Venus facing east, that of Roma west toward the Forum Romanum. The cellae were apsidal and vaulted. Roma Aeterna appears as enthroned and helmeted, with the palladium in her hand and steadying a spear with her another hand. The interior we see today with porphyry columns, polychrome pavement, and deeply coved ceiling belongs to the time and restoration of Emperor Maxentius. There is space here for many hundreds of dedications, but all we know of were silver statues of Antoninus and Faustina, and a statue of Minerva. In year 625, on a visit to Rome, Emperor Heraclius granted Pope Honorius I the right to use the bronze tiles of the temple to cover the Basilica of San Pietro. You see the Temple of Venus and Roma as it might have looked shortly after, without a roof, with faded colors. Anyway, it was still majestic. From this moment its destruction begins, but that is a completely different story. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe to our project. If possible, help with a donation on Patreon, and we will relive the history together.